zoom out first. It is unfortunate that expressing anger, that we have cultivated a culture to a degree where expressing anger really threatens the relationship. And the world that you would love to have radical honesty in, that this guy tries to carve out for himself, the author, is where you can express anger and it can be understood to have been released and untrue 30 minutes later. I no longer feel that way. I no longer think you're terrible. And you've moved on, I've moved on. That's not the world that most of us live in. So how do you let the anger out? Well, the first experience that I ever had with this was in a program. It was called Choice Center. I don't necessarily recommend it. It can get very salesy. But they put you in a room for 4 days in a row. They piss you off. And by day 3, they have you like wail on, well, I'm not supposed to talk about this. This is supposed to be a secret. I'm breaking integrity. But I actually didn't promise.
You can be vague if you want.
Well, I'm trying to think what I said to them. I'm trying to think if I actually promised not to tell other people. I can't remember at this point. So I'll be vague. They have you get it out. Scream it out. You could do this thing versus... you could do this thing at grounding camp. I went to Elliott Hulse. No secrets there. You run around in circles, you do mosh pits, you get it, and you scream at a partner. And what happens is at first you're just yelling. You're just like, I'm at an event and I'm screaming. And then what you see is something flips in people. And it's kind of like you took a lid off of something and it was just, a little bit of smoke, and then a volcano erupts. And you're like, what is coming out of me? Like, what is this sadness, this anger? You give it a chance to come out and it does.
That's fascinating. So you start off, he says, everyone run around and scream at each other. So you're just running around.
You do like a mosh pit. You're like,
kind of like a smile.
You're
like smiling. You're like, oh, screw you. Screw you. But halfway through it just flips into actually your rage is coming out.
And so everyone has different things that trigger them. So I don't know that I'd got a ton of anger at that, but I saw people that had it. And then I saw people just break down and cry. Like I saw a lot of cathartic experiences there. So that he engages that through what is called bioenergetics, a lot of movement, and he uses the body to get into it. There's another way. We have a course that we don't often talk about because it's just so different from what most people are looking for. It's called emotional mastery. And within that course, there are these meditations where you're instructed to go back through previous experiences and memories, and what often happens is you'll get triggered. And you do this in a quiet place so that if it does happen, you can scream into a pillow or that sort of stuff. So all of these are there's different ways to anger, that is to say. Now, the other one that you mentioned, radical honesty, Ben and I have done, we had one radical honesty where we started like, I don't have anything to say. And you're like, me neither. And we started and then it went and it was like tense.
Yeah.
It same thing. You open the lid, you're like, there's nothing in here. So doing the exercise with someone and just going through that practice of, I don't know, that you were like rude yesterday, whatever, and you do it like 6 times and then something pops. Yeah.
And you'll feel it.
You feel it. So those are a panoply of options. If you will.
I have a question for you. Do you think you need to direct the repressed anger at the person that it is caused by? Because for me, what I found, I similarly, was repressing sadness and anger pretty aggressively. And I found that even just expressing it at all was very helpful. So someone triggered me and I was pissed. And normally what I would do is I would sit down and just gather myself, right? I'd be like, just get control, maintain control, right? I don't know why, but that's just my go. When you ever have a strong negative emotion, you just take control of it, which just means repressing it. And instead, I went, all right, I'm going to let this bad boy out. And I grabbed some pillows and I just started smashing them around my room. And I didn't talk to the person that had triggered me necessarily in that state of anger. I actually waited till after the anger had passed and then I went and talked to them. But I found that to be really helpful. So I don't know if you agree or disagree with that solution. But
I think that there's stages, and I think the first one is to get in touch with it. And so if you're describing like, I'm not in touch with this, do it by yourself first. It can often be the best way to do it. And I actually really advise that path.
Yeah, it allowed me to talk to the person about what had made me angry without just screaming and being completely a lunatic.
Well, also, you didn't really know it until you experienced it. You know what I mean? Like, as is often the case, you don't realize how angry or what made you angry or the feeling. And so the first thing is to stop lying to yourself. And that means you experience the emotion in its totality. You can, if it helps, get the body involved, but you can also just breathe and feel the tension in your fists or whatever. Like, you can feel that emotion move through you. There's 100. I've done all these different modalities. It's a type of therapy. It begins with somatic therapy. Waking the Tiger is the book that sort of talks about it. But you sit there and you pay close attention to the inner feelings of your body and how tension sort of moves. And you don't treat it as a static thing. You pay close attention to be like, okay, now it's in my fists. Now it's moving into my elbows and it's in my back. And whoop, this is going away. That helps you move through an emotion, because an emotion isn't static if you pay attention to what it does to your body. It starts in your chest, it radiates out, it comes back. And once it's kind of taken its shape, it can settle. So once you've done that, you'll have a much closer grip on it. And then, like Ben said, if there's still anger that needs to be expressed, you can often do it in the context of the radical honesty. I resent you for, with some control over that situation while still being very honest about it.
Yeah. Well, it's not even control, because I do think anger burns itself out.
Sure.
So it's not, that's the difference, I guess. Is I used to be like, all right, breathe heavy, get in control of your anger. If you flip out in your room, smashing pillows together and screaming and whatever, at least for me, after a couple minutes, you're kind of burned out. Yeah, and then you can go talk to the person and you don't have any anger. Though they might re-spark you a little, but you don't have to control that anger you felt 2 minutes ago, because it's just kind of gone.
Yep.
And I think that's the benefit of it, is if you control it and repress it, it's still in there. And you might unleash it on the person, or you might unleash it on someone else that does something minor that day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, once it flows out of you, it's just kind of, it's not there anymore. You've burned through that fuel. And so then I think you can have the conversation and you don't have to control anything, because now you have to create the fuel.
Exactly. Well, it's like a good metaphor for this is that most people experience their emotions as a lake, and their face is a dam, and they're just trying to hold everything back because there's so much back there. When you get rid of the dam and you start to allow this stuff to come out, it moves more like a river, which means that by simply waiting, the anger burns itself out and it's gone. Sadness burns itself out and it's gone. And just new stuff is there. And that's the goal, is not to never feel angry or sad. It's just to have it move through you and then be like, okay, I experienced it. But in order to get rid of the dam, you have to experience it.
Yeah, and if you're just starting out, you might have a lot.
Yeah, it could take a while.
You might have a lot of rage to work through.
This is where the reservoir analogy is very helpful, because it can feel like, no, this is still a lake. Like, it's not going anywhere. It's like, no, you are draining the reservoir. You just have a lot back there, and it will get more river-like in time. That was a confusing thing for me, because I was like, I'm crying all the time. Why am I sad? It's like, you haven't cried.
You got 10 years of sadness.
You got 10 years of things you're sad about that you haven't ever addressed. So hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here, so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.